The number of Americans filing for unemployment reached the lowest level since the onset of the pandemic. According to a Department of Labor report released Thursday, 444,000 Americans made initial unemployment claims last week. That's a decrease of 34,000 from the week prior. Meanwhile, many states are in the process of ending several unemployment assistance programs. That includes a federal program that provides $300 a week to jobless people on top of their state unemployment aid. Associated Press reporter Christopher Rugaber joins me now from Washington. Christopher, why are the jobless claims so low? It's actually near pre-pandemic lows. And do you expect that these numbers will continue to decrease?
Yes, well, hopefully, we hope so, and I think they will. I mean, they could go lower. In a healthy economy, you would expect them to be closer to 250, 300,000. So there's still a little way to go. Of course, we've come down a lot from the real highs at the beginning of the pandemic when they were in the millions. And then as recently as January, you were seeing about 900,000 people a week requesting unemployment. So we definitely we're certainly far down from that. And so that's all good. Presumably, companies are laying fewer people off, which is what you would expect. You know, we are seeing more advertising for jobs. Businesses want to hire, so they ought to be cutting fewer workers. And I think that's the main reason you see these numbers coming down. And there's every reason to expect that it should continue to decline.
Well, the American Rescue Plan mandates that $300 be sent to the unemployed every week until September 6th, but you report that 22 states now plan to start blocking those payments in June. Tell us more about why states are taking this action and how the residents in these states are reacting.
Well, a lot of them are taking this action, particularly after the last jobs report a few weeks ago when the government reported that only about 266,000 jobs were created in April, which is normally not a bad number, but after the pandemic, and as we recover from the pandemic, that's a lot fewer than we want. We're still 8 million jobs short of where we were before the pandemic intensified over a year ago. And we are at record levels of job openings. Companies are certainly advertising a lot of jobs. And so that's created a sense, I think, among certainly many business owners and business executives that the extra 300 is discouraging people from taking work. And that's, certainly controversial among many economists, but it's true that if you made, say, 32,000 or less at your previous job, you might be making more at unemployment, according to an analysis by Bank of America. So there's a concern that it's discouraging people from taking jobs. I mean, there are other issues out there. Certainly, many people are worried about their health, worried about catching the virus still, particularly if they're not vaccinated. And so that's perhaps one reason people are not headed back to work. But you see mostly Republican governors in these 22 states, or they're all Republican governors, who have decided to cut off the 300 in an effort they believe to encourage more people to go back and take jobs.
And you also reported that states are ending other aid programs. Christopher, tell us something about those programs. Why are those being stopped?
Well, there's two main other ones. There's one that was, both were created last year when the pandemic first hit the United States last spring. And the first one is a program that covers gig workers and contractors and self-employed people. And that's a fairly large program. And that is being ended in about 19 states. And then there's a second program that gives benefits to people who've been unemployed for 6 months or longer than 6 months. And that's also being ended in those 19 states. And that's not as clear why those are being ended. I mean, typically gig workers, self-employed people weren't eligible for unemployment. I mean, this is the first time they've been eligible to get it. And it was, I think a lot of people saw it as filling a real gap in the safety net. But again, with the unemployment rate coming down and some companies certainly advertising a lot of jobs, I guess there's a sense that certainly the extended benefits that go longer than 6 months, some of these governors may feel that they're not necessary. It's certainly true that some of these states have low unemployment rates, which of course suggests that people are in fact going back and taking jobs even with these programs in effect. But some of these governors may feel they're not as necessary because the rates are coming down.
All right, Christopher Rugaber, thank you.
Thank you.